Okay, so on to part 2 of Lynn Criswell's deposition in the case of Ray Funderburk. Now, in this section, Gary Shipman, who is Ray Funderburk's attorney, is trying to establish that Jim and Michelle speak in disparaging ways about employees and also about students. So I'm going to read to you an incident that happened that Lynn experienced when she was with Michelle Lee. Gary Shipman says, did you experience Jim and Michelle talking about people in a disparaging manner? And Lynn says, yes. And what examples can you give? Says Gary Shipman. So one of the earliest examples was actually right after the reporting that you had been reading from in a conversation with Michelle Lee. Now, this is a WECT article that was released in 2020. And in that WECT article, there was an expose. And in the expose, there were accusations by employees who suspected that Jim and Michelle had an inappropriate relationship. So that's what they're referring to. One of the earliest examples was right after the reporting. I was in conversation with Michelle. For context, it was the article where they were talking about being in a car together or something. And she came to me and said, you know, if I looked like an employee, a Black employee, and weighed 300 pounds instead of looking like this, and she kind of motioned with her hands, you know, along her body, there wouldn't have even been a report like that. And I took that as disparaging to this employee and their weight. Now, essentially what Michelle means here is that she is such a hot commodity. This is a woman who's in her 60s. She's such a hot commodity that it was big gossip that Jim couldn't keep his hands off of her. Ick! Later, Lynn says, how many examples like this do you want? And Shipman says as many as possible. I have a very distinct memory of a conversation. There was a meeting with upper level people. We were getting together to discuss an upcoming meeting that we had with a representative from 100 Black men in the community, a community organization. So this was just internal, but everybody was getting together to talk about, you know, what we wanted to share with that group when they came. And we were in the boardroom and Jim Morton was sitting next to me for some reason. And we were talking about Black male students and recruiting them more actively. And my comment was, you know, one of the priorities of 100 Black men as a group is to get more young Black males into higher education careers. So in other words, professors, instructors at colleges and universities. So I managed these degrees, the teacher preparedness degrees, and I indicated that, you know, I wanted to be able to talk to them about that. And Jim from beside me leaned close to me and said just kind of to me, he leaned in closer and said, you know, Lynn, these students can't make the GPA for your program. These students being Black students, Black male students. He said, they come from broken homes. They don't have parental support. You know, we need to get these people into jobs quickly. That echoed an experience that I had prior to that, where we were replacing carpet in the S building and Jim and Michelle were walking one day to check the process, and they walked by me and said, walk with us. And we passed a Black female custodian who all of the furniture was askew in the room, and she was sweeping and cleaning. And Michelle said in a very sing-songy voice, would you like me to give you a nickel for every dust bunny you sweep for me? And Lynn says, I felt that was demeaning at best and racist beyond that. And that woman looked at me and I was ashamed to be with them. So again, you can see this thread of racism that I talked about in the other 2 videos, talking disparagingly about Black employees, talking disparagingly about Black students. So Shipman asks Lynn, what was your reaction to the conversation you had with Jim about the young Black male students. She said, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with that. We're at an institution that serves everybody, and we're here to empower people. We're here to take somebody who maybe hasn't felt good in society, doesn't feel they have opportunities in society, and let them know that all the doors are open for them. And the president said we have to get these people into jobs and made broad assumptions about programs they were qualified for. Shipman says, you were sufficiently shocked that you felt like you had to write down what happened with this interaction. And she said, yes. And he said, why did you do that? And she said, it was just painful. And I just thought, I need to have this. If this is the environment that's being created, that we're telling certain students because of race that they belong in a certain box and don't have all these opportunities, then I need to be able to speak for them someday. So Lynn Criswell, who advocated for students who wanted to see doors open for all students, they fired. And Jim Morton still remains there, making nearly $500,000.